G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Sadhana Smiles from Harcourts Move in Melbourne. Thanks for your time today, Sadhana.
Thank you, Troy. Nice to be with you.
Let's start with how we know each other. That's Kirsty Dunphy in Launceston here, who I had on the cast not long ago. She suggested that you'd be a great guest.
Well, it was lovely of her to do so. I've known Kirsty for a very, very long time. I won't say the number of years, but and she's not only a beautiful human, but she's a good businesswoman as well.
Yeah. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, Harcourts Move is a property management business. So we manage investment properties for investors all over Melbourne. So we're unique where we don't actually look after one specific area. We look after properties all over Melbourne, which, you know, is a bit of fun because particularly in the Melbourne market at the moment, we have such a diversity in the rental market. Inner city market is pretty screwed, you know, without the international visitors, whereas the outer suburbs are performing really well. And, you know, we have management fees that we charge our clients to look after their properties and make sure they get the right tenants in and they get continued capital growth in their investment.
Yep, great. And I guess with the inner city low occupancy rates at the moment, part of that's also the regional move or the boom of people moving out of the city as well. Is that contributing?
Yeah, it is contributing. So there is a lack of migration, lack of students, and then you've got the regional, lot of people choosing to move into regional Victoria. Yep. Or anywhere regional at the moment. In fact, regional properties are coming up and staying in the market, you know, literally less than a week and being snapped up.
Wow.
And it's interesting, you know, I was talking about this to a few people the other day, and it is a bubble and it will burst at some point. It's just a matter of when. It will. We can't sustain the levels. The market is heating up at the moment. Affordability is becoming a massive issue, a whole bunch of other reasons. And I think at some point, you know, RBA and the banks will step in, interest rates will go up, a few other things will happen just to take the heat out of the market a little bit.
Yep. Well, tell us how you started out.
That's a funny story. I started off as a receptionist, actually, many years ago. I'd come back from overseas and I was looking for a job and didn't really have any qualifications. And I got offered a job in a real estate firm as a receptionist. And I went, oh, this is pretty cool. They've offered me a job. I was really bad at it because they only had me on the front counter for less than a month, I think it was. And, you know, the director sort of had that conversation. We think it's time for you to move. You know, you're pretty good at what you do, but not this. And then I kind of then really moved my career through all the different elements of real estate for a number of years. Left the industry for a bit, worked in what we now call PropTech, but in those days it was the software company selling, you know, real estate software systems to agents. And I worked there for 4 years and then came back in the industry because I loved it a lot, and then ended up I have two roles. I have a corporate life and I have my own business, and then ended up as a CEO for a company called Harcourts, which is quite well known in Tassie. I ran the Victorian business for them, then had an international role with them. And then 3.5 years ago, decided to purchase Harcourts Move or start up Harcourts Move. We purchased a rent roll. And I did that because for me, it was around a couple of reasons, putting my money where my mouth was. You know, you go around as the corporate person telling businesses how to run their businesses and what the right processes and systems are. And I think you've got to have skin in the game to be able to do that sometimes. And so for me, it was about, let's put into practice what I'm preaching. And secondly was to build myself an asset.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're CEO of Harcourts Australia.
No, so I've left Harcourts. I'm now CEO for a business or for an industry body called Real Estate Industry Partners.
Got it.
So we're a collective of businesses that have come together to represent the industry to, you know, around advocacy, data, marketing, professional standards, well-being, and office profitability.
But you were CEO of Harcourts.
I was CEO of Harcourts Victoria.
Oh, Victoria, got it. Still, that's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, starting as a receptionist. It's a good story. It's a good story.
And is the reason why you was the timing about the same of starting up Harcourts Move? Is that why you jumped out of Harcourts Victoria CEO role, or?
No. So I was the CEO and I had Harcourts Move at the same time. So my corporate career sort of changed a little bit from working in franchising, and I've stepped out into this new role as a CEO, which is more of an industry-based role. I've spent all of my career in real estate, either working directly in the industry or indirectly, and I'm very passionate about, I think, the industry has been seen in a poor light from time to time. And I think there's a lot of work that we can do to build better connections between the industry and our clients. And I think the time is now right for the industry to collaborate more and work together more, and actually really start to push the industry forward in terms of ownership on software systems, on fintech, prop tech businesses, etc.
Great. And so you started late 2017 or early 18?
My business started in July, 1st of July 2017.
There we go. Great. And how old were you when you decided to make the move?
How old was I? Oh my God. So I'm 55 now. So do the maths on that.
52 and a half.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Geez, I haven't enough coffee.
Early 50s. Troy will do.
There we go. Yeah. And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business?
Yeah, look, we started off, we purchased a rent roll of about 200 odd properties. We now sit on 420 properties 3.5 years later. So we've, but I think I was saying to you earlier, it's interesting, I went into the business thinking that I know how to run a real estate business because it's what I've done all my life. And I think it's a bit like the plumber whose plumbing in the house is never fixed. What I've learned is that from the front line of my own business is that, running your own business is not easy. And we didn't make any money in the first year. We barely made any money in the second year. We've certainly turned it around. I did all the usual things. I hired the wrong people. I had the wrong systems in place. I wasn't watching my expenses and my P&L. I was losing properties. Client services wasn't where it was supposed to be. So I learned all the hard lessons very early, but boy, did I learn them.
Yep. Great. And any other numbers you can use to illustrate the growth, number of team members that you started with FTE to now?
Yeah, so we've got, we started off with way too many staff members. We now have, for 420 properties, we have 3 full-time staff and 2 part-timers in the business. And that's because we've been able to manage the business, and we've still got room for growth with that team number in place, because we now rely heavily on technology. One of the lessons that I learned was, for the business to become more profitable, I've actually got to run a business that has high levels of efficiency and automation. So we've invested on the technology side of the business, which literally replaces a human in a lot of ways, that picks up all the heavy admin work for us. And the people then focus on client relationships.
That's very smart. Yeah. So what, for FTE now, what full-time equivalents did you start with?
I'm just trying to do the numbers. We had 1, 2, 3. We probably had about 6 full-time equivalents.
Oh, wow.
So we've halved it.
Huge cost saving then.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, definitely. But that's only purely because the technology does the heavy lifting for us now. Yeah.
And when was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
This is going to be a funny answer, but probably through COVID. I remember distinctly, it was the weekend of the 14th of March. I'd come back from Brisbane. The whole country was going into lockdown. And I sat down with my team and said, right, we've got to pivot, and we've got to pivot really fast. Because when we go home tonight with our laptops, I just don't know when we're going to be coming back. And it was really interesting to see how much of our business had already, people running around trying to become paperless and get onto the cloud and, do virtual tours and digitize their businesses. We were already there. And we literally spent the last afternoon taking the final virtual tour videos of the properties that were vacant. Our girls picked up their laptops. They went home And we stayed there for many months, as you know, in Melbourne. And at no point in time did our business, in fact, go backwards. We grew, we still listed properties, we still leased properties. Our team didn't feel like they were disconnected from the business in any way. And I think I look back at that time now, and probably in the worst time for the country and for our industry, my business thrived.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how did you go then? Were you allowed into the properties that were listing to take photos, or you got the owners or the tenants to take them for you?
In some cases, if they were occupied and then becoming vacant, we got the tenants and owners to take photos for us. But if the property was vacant, for one of the lockdowns, we were actually allowed into the property to take photos as long as the property was vacant.
Yep.
But for the last lockdown, we weren't. But we were already, for 3 months, we didn't lease anything. Mm-hmm. But the business was solid enough to actually ride that wave.
Yeah, great. And what does success look like to you?
That's a great question. I'm a big believer that success for me looks like building a place where people want to be. I have team members who want to be there, who wake up every morning and look forward to getting into work. There's a great culture where everybody is responsible for the culture, because if you have happy people in your business, you're going to have happy clients. And if you have happy clients, the profits look after themselves.
That's it.
So I kind of reverse engineer the whole thing. My biggest focus is making sure that my people work in an environment that's going to keep them there for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about culture in a minute. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
To marketing a fast-growing business?
Yep.
Don't put stuff out there that you can't do. Number one, there's a lot of people who put everything out into the marketing world, but if you can't deliver it, please don't do it.
Don't bullshit. Yeah.
Don't bullshit. Be really targeted in your marketing that you do. So, one of the lessons that I've learned is that if I just went out and put a piece of marketing out there, I'm probably going to pick up clients that I potentially don't want to. So be really clear on your target market and then go after them hard.
Yeah.
And be transparent with your clients, because most people dealing in our industry get frustrated with the lack of transparency that they have. So make sure that you provide high levels of transparency for your people. Be really clear about your target market and then go hard.
Yep. And you do use the Net Promoter Score. What's your number?
I do. So our Net Promoter Score, we do them every 6 months across the board, which is including our owners and our tenants, and our number sits at 40 at the moment.
Great. That's fantastic. And for the audience, that's a positive number. It's not a percentage.
Yes, that's a positive number. Yeah.
And it's really hard to get anywhere near 50. It's on the measurement scale, they say it's extremely good. Like the big companies like Google and Apple, around the 40s and the 50s. And so that's a phenomenal achievement. Well done.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's something that we've really ingrained in the culture of our business. I remember the first time we did it, we all held our breath because we do it through we have a fabulous platform that we do it through, and we actually text our clients and they can go through and actually respond on text. So the responses are almost immediate, and we can see the score building as we watch it happen. And you literally hold your breath, because within the first probably 3 or 4 hours, your score is in.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've done really well from a culture perspective is we run a business where we want the clients to tell us what we're doing or not doing enough of, where we can improve our services. And the Net Promoter Score does that beautifully for us, because a lot of our clients say, yep, you're great, but you could do this better, or the service we received from you, and no one's perfect, you got this wrong and you got it horribly wrong. And so then we can then look at our systems and say, how do we improve this from the client's perspective? And then we go back and report this is what we've done in our business to improve our services. And what we find is clients love that. The fact that we tell them, we've listened to them and we've improved it. The next time round, they're actually even more open with what we can do better.
It's a great point to feed that loop back to the people giving you the score or the feedback, because often people think, oh, that's great. And that you move on, you make the changes, but they don't know. And yeah, that's a really good point. Out of interest, so the tenants and the clients are scored differently. So the number's about the same for both, or is one?
Yeah. So no, it's one combined number.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
It might be interesting to break that out. So you've got, you can see whether there's, one cohort.
Yeah, we have broken it out.
Yep.
So the owner's one is higher than the tenant's one,
Mm.
and that's quite normal in our industry, in our marketplace. Quite often we have to make decisions that the tenants don't like because of legislation, or the owner isn't prepared to do something, and we're the people caught in the middle. However, from memory, our tenant score was about 31 or 32, yep, which is still pretty high. It was all in the positives, and quite high. So,
that's still excellent. And how did you fund your business?
How did I fund my business? The bank. No, I funded it partly through cash and partly through loan. So yep, I've got a debt on the business.
Yep.
Which I don't look at.
Because you acquired an existing business, obviously, so you need
we needed to fund that business in. Yeah.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yes, I would. It's an industry that is very frontline. It's an industry that underpins the Australian economy. It's an industry that it's, always spoken about. It's one that I think, sends goosebumps on a Saturday afternoon when you watch people buying or selling or leasing properties. Once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And it's a wonderful industry in terms of the energy that's required. People buy a house or they move into a house, whether they're leasing or they've purchased it, and it's joyful. It's wonderful to work with people and help them move on to the next stage of their life for whatever reason they're doing it for. So no, I choose it every single time.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
How many do you want?
Just one.
Just the one?
The most stressful.
The most stressful is selecting the wrong people to work in the business. Yep. At the end of the day, it always comes back to that, because they manage everything. They manage the clients, they manage the profits, they manage the business, everything. So I made doozies in hiring the wrong people, but I've learned that lesson. It's now around taking the time. It's hire fast, fire faster, but I think you've got to hire the right people and take the time, do the interviews, get your teams to do the interviews, do the site testing if you need to do it. Take the time, fire fast, yes, if that's what you need to do, but take the time to hire the right people.
Yep. Yeah, as I like to say, people are the hardest thing in small business, and it's where the value's at, because you can't do it on your own.
No.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
What area of the business have I had to work on the most to add the greatest value? So for me, it's around keeping the culture piece connected, the people connected to the vision of the business, where we're heading to. It's not something you can do once a year and then think that everybody's going to be connected to it all the time. It's something that you have to work on as a leader, I believe, all the time. So for me, it's, the culture days, the team days, talking to them about the business, being transparent on the numbers of the business, around growth. What does a loss mean? So my team are across everything in the business. I don't hide anything from them. And I think it empowers them to make better decisions. Yes. My team now talk about growth. We call it, how do we sell more lemonades?
Yep.
Because I use the example of how little kids sell lemonade on the side, and what happens if we raise the price up by 50 cents? What happens then? So we talk about selling more lemonades in the business, but how do we sell more lemonades, and what does lemonade look like? Because it's not always the same thing. And I think that's the piece I work on the most in my business.
Yep. And what have you enjoyed least about managing fast growth?
The pain points around when you manage fast growth, the losses that you suffer along the way, and they are based on poor decisions that you've made as a leader. They are poor decisions you've made around growth or acquisition, and watching your profit margins reduce because of those decisions. Yeah. That's shit.
Yeah. That is a technical business term. Yes.
That gives you sleepless nights, yes. And that's the end result of that. And I've had many of those where you kind of wonder, how am I going to pay salaries next month?
Been there, a few times.
It's not good. Yeah.
No. And what do you love most about growing a small business?
Oh, just the joy of watching the growth from month to month. It's not just looking at the P&Ls, but looking at the teams high five themselves. Now, in my business, we've won the Excellence Award. We've been 1, 2, or 3 every quarter this year, and our goal is to be number 1.
Wow.
But to win the Excellence Award for the whole of Victoria this year means that we've got to hit the excellence numbers consistently in our business.
Yep.
And every month my team looks at those numbers and goes, have we done enough to be number 1? And have we earned the right to be number 1? And I think that's the sort of stuff that really, inspires me.
What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
My biggest mind shift has been that as a leader, I don't actually have to be across everything. Yep. If I've got good people in the business, get out of their way and let them do what they do. But my job is to look after the key components of the business, and it's different for everybody, but I know what mine are. But you don't need to be, if you've got good people, you don't need to be across everything.
Yeah, it's hard to let go though, isn't it? Especially
Yep.
if you burn yourself early on by getting the wrong people on the bus, and then you fall into that trap of going, well, no, I need to be more across more detail, etc. So
yeah, and it's a trust thing. If you've got the right people and you trust them and they deliver, then you can take a step back and let go. But it's hard to do when you've made the wrong decisions, and you have to kind of put your hand up and say, the business is where it is because of my poor decision making.
That's right. Well, at the end of the day, it's your job to hire the
Yep.
right people. So
Yep.
What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Financial. Be across your numbers. Be across your numbers. Be across your numbers. I'm not going to say daily because that's just ridiculous, but be across your numbers on a regular basis, not just in the month, 14 days after in the month, and the bookkeeper gives you the numbers and you go, what, that happened?
Yep.
WTF, hello. No, be across your numbers on a regular basis. Know the dials, know the gears that you need to shift on all the time. What happens if my vacancy rate goes up to 30%? What happens if I lose 10% of my business? What happens if the market prices, rental prices drop and there's a high vacancy rate in the Melbourne market? How's that going to impact my bottom line? Know your numbers.
Yep.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. growsmallbusiness.com.
And can you talk more to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Yeah, so the best way I've learned to add people to the team is get the team to think of people they know who would be great to work with.
Yeah.
Because it's, I had this conversation today actually where it was like, go out to your network, start talking to people and bring people to me who you would be able to work with, that you've worked with before, who think like you, who will be an added value to the business that's going to drive this business forward because you know what we need.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to put an ad on Seek and Facebook and all that sort of stuff, but I think my best recruitment tool is the people that are already in there.
Yeah, it's good tip. What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think as a leader, you need to care about your people. And I believe that that's the first place to start. And it's about walking the floor, walking in with the right energy in your business. You can't walk in there having a bad morning because then everybody's going to have a bad morning.
Yep.
Care about your people, know what's going on in their life, and be genuine about it. Make sure that your people are rested, that they are well, they are healthy. We work in an industry where there are high stress levels. We have one of the highest suicides in our industry, believe it or not.
Right.
But what that tells me is that our people are working in high stress environments. So as the leader, your job is to make sure the environment isn't stressful, your people are well, and they're not taking shit home with them.
Yep.
That's causing them stress in their home life.
Yep. And tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Is there such a thing as balance? I think I think balance is different for everybody. What
Yes.
balance looks like for me is different to what looks like for you and for your listeners. I think the key thing here is listen to your body. And if you are suffering exhaustion, whether it's physical, mental, emotional exhaustion, you're stressed out, you're constantly tired, you haven't got the energy, then you need to do something about it. Something needs to give.
Yeah. How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
Oh, heaps.
Yep.
Heaps and heaps. Look, I never went to university. I don't have a degree. I have a degree of street smarts. And part of that street smarts was investing in myself, you know, going to conferences, doing online stuff, reading books, you know, anything. And I still do that to this day. I listen to podcasts every morning and every afternoon on the way home because I learn something. I pick up something that I can then apply personally or in my business.
That's good. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
I have. I've had a hell of a number of mentors and coaches. Sometimes they haven't even known that they have been a mentor and coach.
And stalking.
It's called stalking. Absolutely. And you know, it's an industry where when I started in the industry in the late 80s, there were no female role models that were doing what I do today.
Yeah.
And so what you can't see, you can't aspire to be. But I was I was privileged enough to work in businesses with male leaders who saw potential in me and provided opportunities and open doors. And I'm a big believer that when those doors open up, doesn't matter how they open up, but when they open up, you step through and you own that space.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I have a board of advisors, an unofficial board of advisors. And they are different people. They're people who work in PR, in marketing, in real estate, non-real estate industries. And they are people that I will default to ask for advice, depending on what my issue is.
Do you meet though on a regular basis all together, or just you bounce off them? Yeah.
No. And you know, we're still a small business. And I think if my business doubled in size, I would definitely look at that.
Yeah. All right, so I know we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I think the hardest thing in growing a small business is juggling the cash flow, because you need the cash flow to grow. And sometimes that becomes an issue. And you know, you have to dip sometimes into your own personal savings and take, you know, loan against your own houses and stuff. I think the most difficult thing is understanding and maintaining good cash flow.
Yep. Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
There's a book called The Invisible Entrepreneur, and I cannot remember who wrote it, but if you Google The Invisible Entrepreneur, there were it was a Kiwi couple who wrote it. It's a great book. It's a book about how you can grow your business but walk away from it for 6 months and the business still continues.
Yep. We'll link through to it in the show notes. We'll find it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that's been one of the books that I've gone back to consistently around building a business that I can go and work in Fiji for 6 months and physically not be here.
Right.
That's my ultimate goal.
And it sounds similar to the E-Myth. Have you read that?
Yes. E-Myth. Yeah. Very similar. Very similar.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Oh God, I listen to so many podcasts. I mean, I can tell you what I'm listening to at the moment, but I'll just bring it really, really quickly. I do a lot of, personal stuff in terms of my personal development, growth, so emotional intelligence, all that. So there's that stuff. And then from a business perspective, I probably follow more industry people within the industry. There's a whole range of podcasts within the industry, real estate industry, that I follow or listen to, or just pick up the phone and talk to people.
Yep. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
It's not one particular tool, but the advice I would give, and this is from my own learnings in the last probably 12 months, is make sure that you have the right technology in place that's going to give you efficiency, that's going to give you the ability to scale. Because a lot of the times we don't do that, or we have pieces of software that just don't all connect together. So it's making sure that technology piece gives you efficiency and gives you the ability to scale. And huge levels of automation.
Yeah. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Day one of starting out, it's not going to be an easy ride. There are going to be lots of bumps, ups and downs. Just make sure you've got the right people around you to give you the right advice to get you through it.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Well, thanks for your time today, Sadhana. That was excellent. I think congratulations on not just the Net Promoter Score, but also the growth, doubling the number of properties under management there in 3.5 years. And really impressive.
Thank you, Troy. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries.
And for our audience, we would greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.